Just before we start today's video, we want to talk about our amazing sponsor, Magic Spoon. Initially, I was super excited when I saw that Magic Spoon sent me a variety box of cereals. They even sent me this amazing bowl and spoon. But then I read their boxes, and to be perfectly honest with you, I was worried about trying their cereal. Each serving has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs. It's only 140 calories per serving. Plus, their cereals are keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. So I was convinced that the cereals were going to taste bland at best, or just downright terrible. Oh wow, was I ever wrong. I've tried a few flavors like frosted, fruity, and peanut butter, and they were all amazing. In fact, every morning now when I wake up, I look forward to having a bowl. They taste delicious, and they remind me of cereals I used to eat as a kid. And Magic Spoon cereals are not just great for adults, kids really like them too. And I don't think they'd be able to tell the difference between Magic Spoon and those ultra sugary cereals. I know with the new year, a lot of us are trying to lose some weight, and Magic Spoon is a great addition to your diet. I was worried that since they were only 140 calories per serving, that I'd be hungry afterward. But each day I've had a bowl, I've been full until lunch. I think you should check out Magic Spoon for yourself. Click on the link to get some Magic Spoon cereal today to help you accomplish your health goals in the new year. Grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use the promo code listed at the checkout to get $5 off any order. Or go to magicspoon.com/listed. And Magic Spoon is so confident in the product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So click on the link below and use the code listed for $5 off. Or go to magicspoon.com/listed to save $5 today. Number 3. Alison Cambier. Gherpin is a small French-speaking municipality in Hainaut, Belgium. In 2001, it was home to 24-year-old Thierry Girardon. Girardon was a lorry driver. He was obsessed with the Scream franchise, and he had seen all 3 movies that had been released up to that point. Girardon was also obsessed with his 15-year-old neighbor, Alison Cambier. Alison was well known in her neighborhood because she babysat many children. She also loved horseback riding. Girardon was convinced that Alison was in love with him, and he called her his bride. On November 9, 2001, Girardon called Alison and asked her to come over to his home. He wanted to exchange some videotapes and have a talk with her. Alison may have felt bad because Girardon's grandfather was killed in a car accident a few days earlier. Nevertheless, she went over to his home. Girardon made advances on the young girl during the visit, and she rebuffed him. Girardon then went into another room and put on the Ghostface Killer mask and costume. He also picked up 2 large kitchen knives. He went back into the room where he left Alison. He walked up behind the 15-year-old and put his hand over her mouth. He then proceeded to stab her 22 times, effectively cutting open the left side of her body. He then picked up her body and carried it into his bedroom. He placed the body on the bed and put a rose in her hands. After the murder, Girardon called his father and a colleague, and he confessed. 24-year-old Thierry Girardon was promptly arrested. People in Belgium were shocked by the brutal murder. Girardon didn't have a criminal record or a history of mental illness. He had never shown any signs of violent tendencies. Girardon had planned the murder in advance in case he was rejected. He didn't want to look her in the face when he attacked her. Girardon said he wore the costume because he thought that Alison wouldn't associate him with her murder. In 2003, Thierry Girardon was sentenced to life in prison. He was able to apply for parole after 12 years, but he was denied parole. In 2018, he applied again. But the only way he was going to get parole is if he was accepted into a psychiatric hospital. He couldn't find a hospital that would accept him, so he was ordered to remain in prison. At the time of this video, 45-year-old Thierry Girardon is still incarcerated in prison. Number 2. Gina Castillo. On January 13, 1998, 37-year-old Gina Castillo was home alone in Los Angeles, California. She was sitting at her computer. Suddenly, her 16-year-old son, Mario Padilla, and her 14-year-old nephew, Samuel Ramirez, burst into the home. Ramirez held Castillo down while her son stabbed her with 4 different knives and a screwdriver. She was stabbed a total of 45 times. When the boys were done, they fled. Castillo managed to get to a phone and she called 911. She identified her son and nephew as her attackers. Tragically, the 37-year-old mother died at the hospital. Padilla and Ramirez were arrested a short time later. In custody, they confessed to the murder. They said that they were obsessed with the first 2 Scream movies. They had watched the first movie, released in 1996, dozens of times. The second film had been released in December 1997, a few weeks before the murder. They had seen the sequel several times. Padilla and Ramirez thought that the murders committed in the movies were cool. They also thought it was the perfect way to kill somebody. They told the police they planned on starting their own killing spree that were similar to the ones committed in the movies. They planned to use a voice-modifying tool to harass their victims and then wear the Ghostface Killer costumes when committing the actual murders. They had even picked out 2 young women as their victims. One of them was Padilla's classmate, whom he didn't know. He chose her because he thought she resembled Casey Becker, played by Drew Barrymore in the first film. Casey was famously murdered in the opening of the original movie. The boys had even made threatening phone calls and sent threatening letters to the 2 girls. The problem was that they didn't have enough money for the voice modifier or the costumes. So they decided to kill Padilla's mother and stepfather and steal the money in his baby half-sister's piggy bank, which was about $140. Then they would use the money to buy the stuff for their killing spree. However, his stepfather wasn't in the home when they went there, so they just attacked his mother. The 2 young men went to trial in June 1998. They were tried separately, and they were both tried as adults. The judge would not allow the prosecution or the defense to talk about the Scream movies during the trial. But in the media, it became known as the Scream murder. There was also much debate in the media if the movies were responsible for the murder. Both Padilla and Ramirez were found guilty of first-degree murder. Mario Padilla, who was 17 at the time of the murder, was sentenced to life without parole. Since Samuel Ramirez was 14 at the time of the murder, he could not be sentenced to life without parole. Instead, he was sentenced to 25 years to life. Mario Padilla is currently serving his sentence at the California State Prison Solano in Vacaville, California. He is 40 years old. Padilla's lawyers appealed, and his sentence was changed to 25 years to life. He will be eligible to apply for parole in June 2022. Samuel Ramirez is 38 years old, and he is incarcerated at the R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego County, California. He was first eligible to apply for parole in April 2020, but he has waived his right to apply twice. He'll be able to apply again in October 2022. Number 1. Cassie Jo Stoddart. On September 22, 2006, Cassie Jo Stoddart was house-sitting for her aunt and uncle just outside of Pocatello, Idaho. She was looking after their 2 dogs and 3 cats. That night, Cassie was planning on having a small party. Her boyfriend, Matt Beckham, was over. 2 more young men, Ryan Lee Draper and Tori Michael Adamczyk, who were both 16 years old, also came over that evening. The four of them began to watch the movie Kill Bill Volume 2. When it appeared that the party wouldn't happen, Draper and Adamczyk announced that they were leaving. They said they were going to see a movie at a theater in Pocatello. Not long after they left, Matt and Cassie heard noises in the basement, but ignored them. Then the power went out. A few minutes later, the power came back on. Matt noticed that one of the dogs kept staring at the basement door and growling. At this point, Cassie was a little nervous. Matt called his mother and asked if he could stay the night with her, but his mother said no. She did offer to let Cassie sleep over at their home. However, Cassie felt it was her duty to stay at the house and watch the animals. Matt's mother arrived sometime between 11 and 11:30 to pick him up. Just before he left, he called Adamczyk's cell phone. Adamczyk answered the phone and talked to Matt in a whisper. Matt assumed he was whispering because he was in the movie theater. When Matt left, Cassie was left home alone in the house. Or so she thought. Shortly after Matt departed, the lights in the house started to flicker. Then the power went out completely. Cassie stayed in the living room on the main floor. One of the dogs growled and then came and joined her in the living room. She then heard a closet door slam. Suddenly, two men in white masks, black clothes, and gloves, armed with large knives, came into the living room. They attacked her and stabbed her 30 times. The next day, Tori Adamczyk and Matt Beckham hung out. Beckham found it odd that he could not get a hold of Cassie. The next day, which was September 24th, Cassie's aunt and uncle returned home and they found her dead body. The medical examiner determined that 12 out of the 30 wounds would have been lethal. He also believed that 2 knives were used in the murder. Neither knife was found at the crime scene. The police talked to Matt Beckham since he was the last person to see Cassie alive. He told them about the strange things that happened while he was there. He also told them that Tori Adamczyk and Brian Draper were there that night. The police went and interviewed the 2 young men separately. They both said they went to see the movie Pulse, but they both had problems describing the plotline of the movie. They said after the movie, they went back to Adamczyk's home. They arrived there at about 11:30 and they stayed there the rest of the night. The police were immediately suspicious of the 2 young men. Then they found witnesses who saw them at a convenience store after 11:30. That meant that they had lied about staying at Adamczyk's home all night. So the police interviewed them over the next 2 days. Then, on September 27th, Draper confessed to the murder. They said that when they were there earlier, they left the basement door unlocked. They came in through the unlocked door shortly after they left. They tried to lure Matt and Cassie into the basement, but they didn't come down. When Matt called Adamczyk's cell phone, they were in the basement, and that's why Adamczyk was whispering. They saw Matt's mother pick him up and leave. So they continued to try and scare Cassie. Then they attacked her in the living room. Draper then took the police to the Black Rock Canyon area. He led them to a cornucopia of evidence. This included the 4 knives, the clothes and the mask they were wearing during the murder, and a VHS tape. The mask had been slightly burned. The police reviewed the videotape. Some segments were recorded days before the murder. Adamczyk and Draper talked about how they planned a killing spree. They said if the police or another law enforcement agency tried to stop them, they would shoot them all to death and flee. They joked that the FBI would be too late to save anyone. They talked about killing Matt Beckham to scare Cassie. Then they decided to kill Cassie and her friends and then move on to other victims. They also thought that the murders would make them famous. They said it would be like Scream, but in real life. While they planned the murders, they laughed. On the night of the murder, they recorded themselves talking about how they were going to kill Cassie. It appeared that they had gone back to their original plan because they were also going to murder Matt. Then, after the murder, they recorded their reactions. They said that the murder went by so fast and that it didn't even seem real. When confronted with the evidence, Adam Schick also confessed. He claimed that Draper was the mastermind behind the murder. He also said that they were inspired by the Scream franchise. Elements of that could be seen in the way they stalked and harassed Cassie before the murder, and then they wore white masks when they stabbed her to death. 16-year-old Tori Adam Schick and 16-year-old Brian Draper were arrested on September 27th, 5 days after the murder. Adam Schick and Draper were tried separately. Brian Draper went to trial first in April 2007. The trial lasted a week. The jury deliberated for 5 hours before finding Draper guilty on all charges. Tori Adam Schick went to trial a couple months later in June 2007. His defense was that Draper did all the stabbing. His trial also lasted about a week. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. Adam Schick was found guilty on all charges as well. In August 2007, they were both sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole. Both Brian Draper and Tori Adam Schick are serving their sentences at the Idaho State Correctional Institution in Ada County, Idaho. At the time of this recording, they are both 31 years old, and unless something changes, they will both die in prison. Thank you so much for watching today's video. And now, here's a clip from our latest video, 3 boogeymen from around the world, from our new channel, Paranormally Listed. Number 3. Wewe Gombal. In Indonesia, there's a ghost who protects kids from neglectful parents. Wewe Gombal is a wrinkled old lady with fangs and breasts that hang down to her knees. When she was human, she was married, and she and her husband wanted to have children. After trying for a while, the husband realized she was infertile. He became frustrated and neglected her. He'd leave her for long periods, and she would feel miserable. One day, she followed her husband when he left the house. She caught him cheating on her. She became so angry that she murdered him. Their neighbors discovered what happened, and they harassed her until she died by suicide. When she was dead, her spirit came back as the Wewe Gombal. You can find a link to the rest of the video on the screen now. There is also a link to the channel in the description box below this video. Thanks again for watching.